Women who dated older men as teenagers that now realize they were predators. What's your story? My mother found older boys to introduce me to when I was 15 over 16. She would take me to coffee shops or sneak me into bars and charm her way with men in their 20s, only to introduce them to me. I would date them, and she would get chores done around the house that she needed. Painted kitchen, fixed cabinets, roof work, stuff like that. I remember my best friend's mom trying to warn me and explain to me why it was wrong of my mother to let her 15-year-old date 25-year-olds, but I just thought I was really cool. It wasn't until one of them found me online and reached out a few years ago that I realized what she'd actually been doing all that time. And of course, none of these guys knew what the duck they were doing, so the house looked like chiz anyways. That is so ducked up. He was my guidance counselor. I didn't realize how creepy he was until he proposed. The whole thing was ducked. The guidance counselor at our middle school had only girls, and a few most often, in his office, door shut. You could feel it was off, even though I was naive and knew nothing about nothing, and this was confirmed when I asked one why she was in there alone a lot, and she looked absolutely panicked. As an adult, I heard he had been at the high school and they moved him because of some improprieties. Keep it creepy. 1980s. I dated/had sex with a 28-year-old when I was 13 and thought it was perfectly normal. He always complimented me, bought me stuff, and drove me places when I needed a ride. Looking back now, I can't believe I didn't realize how ducked up that was. To this day he can't find someone to date that's his age. I'm 24 now. From what I heard from rumors, there's a scumbag in our town that dates all the town's 16-year-olds. My husband got beaten up by him for protecting scumbag's girlfriend from him. She was a claimant of his. Douchebag broke my husband's rib and kicked him on the ground. Luckily he got a short jail sentence and a like 3-year restraining order. My husband felt terrible when it happened because we'd just started dating long distance and he thought it sounded like a weird catfishing story. Guy is like 35 now and still dating girls who don't know any better. Duck you Chris, you a-hole. I was 11 and he was 23. We didn't date. He had a girlfriend, but he would sex me and send me nudes. Eventually I realized it was strange and blocked him. Didn't tell anyone about it. I sometimes wonder if it's impacted me more than I would care to admit. I had a similar thing. He was 19 and I was 11 and he would always ask me for nudes, but I never sent them cause I knew it was wrong deep down. I finally got the courage to tell my friends a little while ago. Also happy cake day. Edit. Thank you all so much for the upvotes and the kindness. I really hope everyone who has been through a similar situation is doing good. As a father, the comments scare the chiz out of me. One thing I've mentioned to parents a couple times is that it's not necessarily the gross annoying creepy person at work that you need to worry about. It's the cute, funny, understanding, super cool one that you should keep an eye on. You know, the one your kid will actually seek out to spend time with and will think everything he says and does is absolute gold. I was 15 with a 21-year-old. He hung around youth group and made all us younger girls feel special with his attention. I was shy and quiet, didn't stand out much, but obviously wanted the special attention that all the prettier, peppier girls got. He wasn't interested until he found out my mom worked nights and I was home alone. We ended up getting into a pretty heated argument and split when, 2 weeks in, I still hadn't let him come over because I was terrified of what my mom would do if she knew I'd had anyone over while she was gone. Glad you stood up to him, but kudos to your mom for raising you right. I was 15 and met a 30-year-old who was an older brother of a boy I met in group therapy. He used to tell me how complicated and mature I was. Lol so glitch. I'm now 24 and seeing or interacting with anyone who is 15 makes me sick. I felt so old then, but it's insane now how obvious to me that people that age are children. I feel the same way. I'm in shock whenever I see a 16-year-old because they are just so young. I'm 32 now, same age as the man that took advantage of me. I was 13 with a 22-year-old boyfriend. He made me feel special, grown up. My friends were all jealous. TBH he was hot. A predator but a solid 10/10. We met on Sparkslive, those were the days, and started a relationship. I was in my ugly duckling phase, so was drawn into it by the attention. No boys my own age seemed interested in me. I was bullied a bit, and it was nice for a good looking, older boy to think I was pretty. He slowly pressured me into sex. Started with pushing me into sexual acts on webcam, to oral, then full sex. He always insisted on filming everything, because he loved me so much he wanted to only use our videos as porn. What I wasn't aware of was the fact he was showing all his friends, and they made bets on how quickly he could get me to do something else. Whenever I pushed back, he always said, if I wanted to date a man I needed to act like a woman, otherwise he would find a girl more willing to have a proper relationship with him. He then tried to pressure me into sleeping with his friends. Started with a threesome, him included. Then one night he asked me to just sleep with his friend. I saw his friend give him money, which is when I realized this whole thing was a lie and left. Wow, I'm so sorry that happened to you. I hope you're doing well now. He texted that he was standing outside my middle school waiting for me. I broke out in a cold sweat and I knew I had made a massive mistake. Edit. Some comments have been asking for details. I hesitate, because it is shameful, and I know in my heart it was wrong and part of it is not my story to tell. But maybe this can be a cautionary story for other young women. I was going down a bad path when I was 14. I looked up to a friend that lived by her own rules. She did whatever she wanted and didn't care about consequences. If I wanted to be in with her and her friends, I couldn't be a baby. I had to do grown-up things. One day my friend came to me and casually told me she had slept with a 19-year-old, and over the course of our conversation it came out that he hadn't used a condom. I got her help. I had to lie to do it, but my friend was angry that the guy wouldn't answer her texts. I told her to give me his number, stupidly thinking I could appeal to him to apologize and do right by her. I was trying to get him to text her back and work things out, but the next thing I know he's asking me for my picture. He wants to know if I'm really who I say I am. I should have stopped there, but I sent him the picture. Next thing I know he starts saying how cute I am, while my friend is reading his texts back to me at the same time. The whole thing is surreal. My friend looks like she ready to blow the whole thing over, and she swears up and down she's not going to bother about the guy anymore. We let it drop. The guy keeps texting me for the next few days trying to wheedle me, and I get this awful idea in my head. If I want to stop being treated like a baby, I have to do what my friend does, right? She doesn't care about rules or boundaries, so why should I? And I did something terrible. I flirted back at him. Things started to escalate. He would ask for nude pictures. He sent me graphic videos. Then he started planning for us to meet and have sex, always in public places. I was scared, and I knew I had gone too far. I tried to blow him off. I thought he would lose interest after that, but that was the day when he texted me that he was at my school. A lot of things from those years fill me with shame, but this is the hardest to deal with, because I know I didn't do right by my friend. No matter what our friendship was like, I should have told the truth and gotten her help, even if it got her in trouble. It took me a long time to realize we were both being preyed upon, and I'm not sure if my friend ever saw it that way. What did you do? I met a dude on Adult Swim's forums back when I was around 12. He was 24 and was nice to me. Things always seemed hinky to me even from the beginning, but I had no friends in real life and was definitely in an ugly duckling place, so I figured that if this is who is going to pay attention to me, so be it. He would tell me the things he wanted to do to me and eventually sent me a hideously low-res picture of his rick, and all I remember is trying to laugh it off and said I thought he sent me a picture of a sock. Eventually, he started asking that if we met in person, if he could tie me up and take nudes of me. He started talking about buying a plane ticket to visit me and for my address, and I guess I finally had a bad enough gut feeling and didn't go through with it. My family eventually found out about us talking, and it was a huge deal. I was rightfully banned from the internet for a while. Not that it mattered much, because I wound up meeting another awful dude older than me, but this one was locally grown. Lol. Jesus Christ, the same exact thing happened to me. The way my parents found out was because he ordered me a ducking Hollister hoodie and mailed it to my house. I gave him my address. He was 33 and I was 12. I was 16. A school teacher of 30 years used to touch me and text me stuff. I didn't really realize it was bad until some years later when he married a girl from my class. I didn't tell anyone because I was scared that people would think that it was my fault. That exact experience, except he had sex with me 2 days after I reached the age of consent in my state. I eventually got him fired. Mom reported him when I was suicidal, and everyone in the school turned against me because he was the most popular teacher. It was terrible. I'm sorry that you had to go through that, and I hope it doesn't affect your life too much now. My first boyfriend, I was barely 15. He was 21. Worked in a local shop and all the girls at my school liked him, so came as a bit of a surprise when the biggest dork ever, me, somehow landed him and not any of the popular girls. We dated for maybe 4 months. Turned out he was sleeping with 3 girls in my year, which I found confusing because it begged him to take my virginity to no avail. Always found that really weird and insulting that he never even wanted to sleep with me. Plot twist, my mum had stormed into the shop when we first started dating and told him, "If you take my daughter's virginity, I will kill you with my bare hands." God bless my mum. Your mom knew you were dating someone that much older and was okay with it as long as he didn't have sex with you? That seems odd. So, I posted this in a thread called Redditors that have called off their wedding. Why? I called off my wedding 3 months before it happened. Why? I was a 17-year-old. I'd have been 18 at the time of the wedding, about to marry a 26-year-old man that had been dating me for 3 years. I was a victim about to marry her abuser. The engagement ring, which I did eventually find out was fake. He has money. Lots of it, but that didn't matter to me. Was to buy my consent /silence/ whatever, as he stuck his rick in everything that moved. He was an alcoholic, a narcissist, a pedophile. Seriously, I wasn't a 14-year-old that looked like an 18-year-old. I was a 14-year-old that looked like a 12-year-old. I loved him because I thought he was saving me from my horrid situation with my family. My mom and I moved in with her boyfriend, only to find out too late that he was an abuser. He'd take me away from it, even if it was just for a little while. I was so messed up. I ended up living in a boarding house when things finally broke in my abusive household because, of course, I was 17 and he didn't want me to move in until I turned 18. His career depended on a squeaky clean image. I ended up pregnant, having a violent end to my pregnancy that resulted in my daughter's stillbirth. Despite this all, I loved him, but he started picking at my appearance. I was gaining too much weight, even though I was at a healthy weight for my age/height. I had gotten hips and breasts. So we talked about dieting. I stopped eating. I drank water when I'd get hungry. Everything had to be low fat/no fat, low calorie/no calorie, and sugar free. It worked. I went from healthy to underweight. What made me realize that I wanted out was a box of chicken wings. I ended up moving back in with my mother after she was able to escape her ex. We lived near an indoor flea market/farmers market that had the most amazing food vendors. I love food, and this diet was killing me. I was ducking miserable. So, I decided to have a cheat day, and I went and ordered a box of hot wings from the chicken place in the farmers market. As I sat down with my favorite movie, eating my favorite food, I realized that the extreme dieting would always be my life. I also realized that he wanting me to be so unhealthy wasn't right. I was tired all the time, cold all the time, hungry all the time. I decided, while happily munching on that box of wings, I was done. I called him, told him that I was done. It took me another 3 years to truly be done, but the very expensive wedding was done and over. He never got any deposits back. It took me almost a decade to realize that he wanted me to look like a 14-year-old forever. I was also always dismissive about the age difference, citing that I was mature for my age. I now realize it didn't matter. I was a child. I'm so sorry that happened to you, and so happy and proud you got out. I was 14 and dated a 25-year-old cop. He never asked my age and I never told. One day we're chatting on phone, and I told him that I got some homework to do and I'll call back later. He said freshman year of college, getting to Yahoo. I said, college? I'm in high school. Dead silence. Then he asked how old I was, and I said 14. He freaked out and was saying I'm gonna go to jail for this and I'm gonna lose my job. He said I can't see you again and please don't tell anyone. I said yeah, of course. I got why he was scared and I never saw him again and never told. When I was 16 I dated one of my older brother's friends. He was 26. He knew I was younger, but not exactly how much younger, and we just never talked about age. Started our fling in the summertime, so when soccer practice began in the fall he was confused as our local college doesn't have a team. He ghosted me and my dumb little heart was broken, but looking back I'm so glad he saw it as creepy and weird and saved us both from more trouble. Who this question was made for me, lol. I had this internet boyfriend when dating / talking to people online was still taboo for going on 2 years I believe. He lived in British Columbia and was I believe 31 at the time, while I was in California and I think 13 when I first started taking to him. I was going through a bunch of crappy things during that time at home, dealing with constant fighting / domestic violence amongst my parents who tried getting back together, dealing with self-esteem issues and self-harm, contemplating suicide or running away. He was of course there for me to talk and listen, and always offered a place at his home if I ever decided to run away. Even offered to buy any plane tickets for me if I just said the word whenever I was ready. He would always talk about the life we could have if I did run away and such. I thankfully never did run away, but the summer I was entering into high school the stars all seemed to align for me to finally meet him. I had always gone to summer camp with the YMCA in elementary and middle school, but high school age kids had a 2-week caravan instead. That year it just so happened that the caravan was planning on driving from Los Angeles to Vancouver, BC and all the way back. I immediately told my mom I wanted to go, and we got my spot reserved. He was definitely excited about finally meeting, and the plan was to hopefully have me sneak out of the campsite and spend time back at his place before bringing me back. We also discussed sex and I agreed to lose my virginity to him when we met. I was worried about him getting in trouble, but it just so happened that the age of consent at the time in Canada was 14, so he assured me he would be fine. The night came, and I snuck out of my tent to meet him, and I forgot the reason why, but he didn't have his car for some reason, so the choice was to take a taxi back to his place or stay at the campsite. I was worried about getting caught offside, so I figured we could just hang out somewhere away from everyone. We found a picnic bench, and I thought we could sit and talk for a bit, but he was just trying to get right to work. He was suggesting to have me lose my virginity on top of this picnic bench out in the open, and there was some random person's tent maybe 20 or so feet away. All they had to do was open their tent and they would be facing us and see everything. He was adamant about us doing it there because there was no other option and my dumb self gave in to the pressure. So I lost my virginity at 14 in another country outside on a picnic bench to this loser of a 32-year-old. It was pretty terrible since it hurt. Wasn't the most pleasant environment, and he lasted maybe a minute. I had instant regret, but at least no one came out of that tent or walked by while it happened. Edit. Wow. Thank you for the golds, you awesome humans. My first award too. And thank you to everyone who has left such kind and insightful comments. I really didn't expect this story to be seen, let alone touch so many of you. You guys are amazing. Edit too. Wow guys. Thank you for the additional awards. For some reason I found myself emotional with a leaking face. While it could be due to all the ridiculousness that 2020 has thrust upon us so far, I think it's more so this unexpected outpouring of support and maybe me coming to some hard realizations. Just know, I'm genuinely touched, and thank you all. Dude, I'm sorry that happened to you. I hope you're doing okay now, and I hope you know that the abuse you experienced doesn't define you. I'm from a third world country where it is normal for 15 to 16-year-old girls to date guys in their early to late 20s, especially in the 90s when chat rooms became available thanks to the internet. At 13 to 14 years old with my girlfriends we would meet up with 18 to 19-year-old boys, which now I know it was not a good idea, but I didn't know any better back then. Until I moved to a different country where I learned that there were strict laws in place for adults dating / having sex with teenagers. I was too stupid to understand why my mom was so upset when at 14 I had a date and got picked up in a car by a 24-year-old who bought me ice cream at MC Donald's, but luckily he was very nice and took me home after. Can't say I wasn't pressured into doing sexual stuff at very young age by much older men, but unfortunately that was the norm. Which country was it? My cousin in Gag got with a guy when she was around 13 and he was around 26. She had 3 kids with him. He slept around with anyone who was willing, including his first cousin, her mom, my aunt, and her sister. He took advantage of her and ducked her self-esteem so much that she always takes him back. Her 3 kids now all have kids too. She is raising most of her grandkids. I feel sorry for all of them. Some parts of Georgia are like a third world country. From a small town in Georgia, can confirm. Not a woman, but when I was under 18, I think I was 16, I joined a guild on WoW and the guild leader groomed and pressured me into sending him nudes and being naked on webcam. When his GF found out, she told the entire guild that I was a home wrecker. I really thought the guy cared about me, but he joined in and said I was desperate, and it was sad that I was so into him. He blocked me and ruined my reputation on that server. He was in the army and I think 28. Pretty sure those pictures got passed around, and it is absolutely vile that these 30+ grown adult men were distributing child porn of me and laughing about it. I blamed myself for the longest time, but telling my story to horrified faces kinda made me realize how ducked up it was. This reminded me of my time on guilds during peak Halo 3 times. I was 11 at the time, but said I just turned 13 to seem older. I was one of the only girls in almost every party I joined, so I made friends really easily. This one guy, 19 at the time, the guild leader even changed the rules that way I could join. So I felt really included and appreciated, but then we exchanged phone numbers, and it started getting personal. Long phone converse that turned to him asking me to be his girlfriend, and then sending and asking for pictures. I was just getting out of my ugly duckling phase, so I was super flattered. I sent pictures in my bra, and he sent me back my first ever ick pic. We dated for a few months before I bragged about this to my cousin, and she talked sense into me when I showed her the messages with him getting increasingly agitated that I wouldn't send full nudes. I ghosted him, and eventually he gave up. I feel like he even remembering this NGL. I was 16 dating my 23-year-old supervisor from work at a fast food restaurant. It started like the normal story. I thought I was mature, he made me feel special, etc, and it was fine for a few months. He seemed sensitive, he had been engaged and had his heart broken before, and it seemed genuinely pretty sweet. We would stay after work talking, and I'd try to sneak over to his apartment when I could. After maybe 6 months of dating, the owners of the restaurant found out and fired him. They didn't fire him for that, but found another excuse to get rid of him pretty quickly. After that, he couldn't find another job, and I felt responsible. I gave him a couple $100 a few times to help him make his rent, but after another few months, he had to move in with his dad. At this point, I started college. I went early, and he was living about an hour away from me. My parents didn't want me to see him when I still lived at home, so we spent a little more time together once I was at school. He still wasn't working, and was pretty unhappy overall. He always talked about how much he loved me and wanted to get married, but I knew all along I didn't want to. I just felt so guilty leaving him. After we'd been dating for over a year, he moved several states away to live with his brother and try to get his life together. He got him a job and everything was going pretty well. We were doing long distance, and he kept trying to convince me to transfer schools out there. After a month or 2 of him being gone, I finally got the courage to break up with him. He became very depressed and even suicidal. He came back to visit, and I saw him twice. Both times, I had to stop him from doing something harmful to himself. I always reached out to his family or friends to make sure they knew what was going on, but eventually I cut off all contact. I looked him up a few years ago. He's married, has 2 kids, and is apparently a pastor or youth pastor. Edit. For those asking, I did report it anonymously to the church. I worked in fast food longer than I should have in my 20s. We had like 6 different locations in my area, and every single one during the evening shift seemed like it was nothing but 20-something-year-old guys as the cooks and assistant managers and high school girls up front. I saw your story more times than I can count. If anyone has a daughter, I would recommend they try retail for their first job. You are less likely to find the 20-something drug/party guys having full reign over the place in the evenings. I personally had zero interest in dating someone who couldn't even legally drink with me, but a lot of those guys jumped at the chance. I don't know why. I don't remember watching anything or being around anyone that would influence me to do this, but I used to, at the age of 12 to 14, send nude pictures of myself to older men. I would go on chat sites and offer up these pictures of myself. I never met up with any of the people I sent pictures to, and I still, to this day, don't know why I did it. To this day I think about older men taking advantage of me, and I don't know why I always go to that place. I don't think I was abused. If I was, I don't remember it. In the days of AOL I was 12 over 13, but my A/S/L was 17/F. My fake name was Ravana. I was so painfully obviously a young child, so I'm positive that all the extremely explicit chats I had with guys in their early 20s were with men who knew what they were doing. I was so horny and pervy. I printed the chat records to share with my neighbor friend, so she could whack off to them too. I remember being very aware of kidnappers, so I never had any intention to meet up with anyone or give any real identifying info, but that didn't help my parents feel any better when they found a chat record in the printer. Deleted. Holy chiz, I thought you were going to say your ex-boyfriend found out and talked sense into you because he was worried, but he pulled one of the biggest trick moves I've ever heard. Both of those guys sucked. I was 15 and definitely didn't understand a thing about love or danger. I found out that he was married and had a child because he literally disappeared, and I was trying to find out what happened. OMG, that's crazy. I'm sorry you got preyed on like that. My first boyfriend was 22 years old. I was probably 13 to 14 something. He was very controlling, the kind that tells me I'm not allowed to say no if he asks anything. He used to ignore me for days and not reply to me, and very often made me send him nudes, and I really hated it. But I wasn't allowed to refuse, or he would go find a girl who would satisfy him, a true woman. And I didn't see anything wrong at the time with this, but at least I didn't have sex with him even though he suggested that. Now I'm 21, and when I look back and think about it, I just feel so much shame and burden. And just ask myself why and wonder, didn't he see that I was a freaking child? And I get filled with sadness. And I feel like that happening in such a young age really contributed to things I have done and hate. All I can take from this is to be careful in the future and make sure it won't happen to my own kids. Now I'm 21, and when I look back and think about it, I just feel so much shame and burden. And just ask myself why and wonder, didn't he see that I was a freaking child? And I get filled with sadness. And I feel like that happening in such a young age really contributed to things I have done and hate. All I can take from this is to be careful in the future and make sure it won't happen to my own kids. Of course he could see you were a child. I wish there was something I could say to take those feelings of shame and burden from you. All I can say is you were just a kid, and all the shame and burden should be on his shoulders, not yours. I hope one day you can forgive yourself for anything you've done that you hate. None of it defines you. I think you're awesome, and your kids, or future kids, if you're not a parent yet, are super lucky to have you looking out for them. I'm 18, Hez 31. I was supposed to meet him tomorrow. My country has finished quarantine. I told him I didn't feel comfortable sleeping with him, or even hooking up in any way. He pressed me on it further, and I admitted I was on my period and was uncomfortable. He told me that he didn't want to be around anybody who put up any barriers. He didn't want me to feel comfortable setting boundaries. Blocked is a real fast. He told me that he didn't want to be around anybody who put up any barriers. Exactly the right moment to nope the duck out of there. Good on you for recognizing the red flag for precisely what it was. I was 17 and having a relationship with my 45-year-old teacher whilst I was in school. My dad was dying of terminal cancer and I needed someone to lean on. The police found out, but I didn't want to disclose any details. Watching my dad die was enough trauma, let alone having a full-on police investigation. He is no longer allowed to teach, but never was prosecuted. I tried to go for counseling, but they said they would have to inform the police of whatever I said. So I've been trying to deal with it by myself. He hit me and sent me death threats and I never reported him. How old are you now? Has the statute of limitations expired? If not, you can still report him. I'll put it my experience in here while I'm at it. I was 14, he was 21, and I thought it was cool that he had a car and could buy alcohol. Luckily I didn't interact with this person for more than a few months. It's ducked up how common this kind of thing actually is. I remember my best friend dated a 21-year-old guy when we were both 14. Back then I felt a little grossed out, but honestly I was mostly jealous. He was handsome-ish and gave her the attention she craved. But eventually she figured out that he was only using her for sex. Then he left her for a 13-year-old. It only dawned on me years later just how ducked up all of this actually was. He was a straight-up pedophile. And we all thought he was so cool. It honestly never clicked for me until I was much older myself. I just thought I was super mature and that's why it wasn't weird that I was 14 with a 19-year-old boyfriend. It was a super toxic relationship. He cheated on me, stole from me, lied to me, and lied about me so much. He pretty much only came around when he wanted sex and would tell me whatever he thought I needed to hear to keep stringing me along. In my naivete, I thought this was just how grown-up relationships were. So I stayed until I finally got fed up at 18 years old. Isn't it funny that when I was finally old enough to date him, I no longer wanted to? I thought I was cooler than the other girls in my grade because my boyfriend was a man. Looking back, I'm sure I was an easy lay as I didn't require much from him in return like people his own age might have. And as I got older, I wondered if he ever felt odd having sex with someone who was so clearly a child. I also wondered how none of his friends, they all knew my real age, thought it was weird or called him out on it. I think that's the system they speak of when they say this kind of behavior takes a village of people who are not willing to protect the child. The irony of it all is that karma has blessed him with 3 daughters and I'm sure has had the scary thought more than once that another him will come along and treat his girls the way he treated me. Edit. To everyone saying 5 years isn't a big age difference. 5 years didn't matter when I was 18 and he was 23, but I was 14 when started dating, and when we started having sex. I was a freshman in high school and he was a sophomore in college. He could buy cigarettes and vote and go to nightclubs or join the army. I was riding my bicycle to friends' houses because I wasn't even old enough for a learner's permit. To the people saying they have friends who are 19 and they are 14 or the like, I can't speak on your friendships, but I can tell you, E and I weren't friends. We were having a sexual relationship which in all 50 states falls under the criminal code for statutory rape. Thank you for the award, kind stranger. Yeah, I dated someone who was 18 when I was 14 and it was a terrible relationship. I think when I was 15 and he was 19 we were at the public pool with friends and I was sad/upset because I had just found out he cheated on me. He was giving me a hug and trying to wheedle his way back in. A lifeguard who must have been about 19 or 20 and in his grade yelled at him to not touch me. And he tried to give this joking smile and shrug her off, but she blew her whistle and was like, "No, brat, I'm not kidding. She is too young, don't touch her." And that was the only person who ever said anything. Is it okay if I comment? I'm a man, but I had an older boyfriend as a teen and didn't realize till later on he was a predator. Edit for events. So this was around the same time as sexual assault and rape had occurred, and it put me in a vulnerable place where I leaned to someone for comfort. If this person loves me it means I'm not dirty. I guess he figured out I was in a vulnerable spot. I was part of a few local clubs and there was this person who showed up to one of them that everyone befriended. He claimed to be 17 years old, and for some reason I was too dumb to realize he didn't change his age throughout the years I knew him. Now during the time I felt vulnerable I started talking to him more often. I was doing some work for him whenever I had time and whatnot. I somehow ignored the first red flag of his toxicity after he told me I was getting fat. He dated a female friend of ours previously, and it ended badly with details I can't really remember, but he tried guilt tripping her with cancer related fears. I spent the day with him one day and I ended up walking to his house. He mentioned he moved house with his mother before because a 16 girl offered to take his V card, then spread a rumor that he attempted to rape her. At the time I thought she was a bitch, but now it seems possible he attempted something. He was complimenting and putting on my favorite movies and genres and telling me his mother won't hear us. I accepted and just let him touch me. He even encouraged me to perform sex acts on him. I was pretty much thinking he cares about me, so it's okay throughout the thing. After a few weeks and a disaster of a date, I was seeing red. I broke off our relationship, or whatever it was to him, and he got pissed, then paranoid, then guilt trippy. He even asked something that terrified me, which was, "Did you find out about the camera?" He claimed it was on charge, but somehow turned on and started recording me when I was taking off my clothes for him. I called it bullshit and demanded he show me that there was no footage of me anywhere. After that I blocked him, however he still continued to come after me. An account added me which was posing as a Japanese student. Hentai DVDs were sent to me as final birthday presents, and I got suspicious when the Japanese student had an exchange with a cute guy. I immediately traced the photo of this student, and it came back with a decent search. I scrolled a bit to find it came from a Korean teenager's blog that had been abandoned months before. I contacted the fake account and immediately told him I knew it was him and I knew what he was doing. He deactivated it. I sent the screenshots to my friends and two reported that he told them he's a bit of a pedophile, and someone in his mid-20s told me that the guy refused to date anyone his own age and had claimed he wants to date all the school children he wants. After that he seemed to just disappear from both social media and in real life. I didn't see him or hear from him again, and no one was speaking about him or seemed to know anything else about him. I figured he might have found out we were all talking about him and he hightailed it before we got any ideas. Didn't realize till 19 how ducked up he and other people were towards me during my teen years. He was the only one out of a few predators I actually cared for and looked to for comfort, so it kinda hurt in a different way. A predator is a predator regardless of the gender they prey. Edit. Op, I know this will mean shiz, but I'm so sorry that happened to you. As a kid I had a friend who babysat a 30 to 35 year old guy's young kids when she was 12 to 13. The dad guy started to romance her and convinced her they were dating, but people just wouldn't understand. I do remember asking her if she had had sex with him and what it was like. She said it didn't do anything for her, but I do it because he likes it. At the time I thought she was really mature and knew what she wanted in life, and parents would just try and boss her around. She moved after a couple years of being with him, so it fizzled out. She is married with her own kids now, and we aren't friends anymore, but as an adult I wish I could go back and explain to us that she was being abused, that it was predatory, and get the guy put in prison. I don't know the guy's name to look up, whether he ever got caught. Edit BC clarify and typo. This is the reason my parents would absolutely not allow me to work as a babysitter when I was a teenager. I always thought they were being overprotective, but who knows, I read too many stories like these now. I was 14. He was 21. He knew me long before we dated though. Since I was 12 he spent lots of time making me feel older than I was and listening to my problems and comforting me. He constantly joked about dating me or my friends, and we always laughed about how he would end up in jail one day. I thought it was a joke, at least until I became really sad and I sought out some comfort from him. He took advantage of that and it escalated really quickly. He guilted me into sending him pictures every day while we dated, and it wasn't until it was too late that I realized what was happening. I recently got back chat logs from that conversation, edit, conversations I had with him, and I had to stop reading it because now that I'm older I can see every ducking tactic he used to manipulate me for all those years. It hurts. I didn't even start to think about it as grooming until I heard he dated another friend of mine, and even though I felt protective of her, it was only a year later that I thought of him as a predator and realized that we were not the only ones and that there were even younger girls. Edit 2. Although reporting him is the right thing to do, I'm not in a mental place to do so. Those of you determined for it to happen are good people, and I appreciate you, but I won't be focusing on him for a long while. I'm sorry that I couldn't protect my friends or his future victims, but I will not be putting myself through that process at this time. Thank you for your support regardless. Just wanted to remind you that it's not your fault. You shouldn't feel ashamed for being manipulated. My best friend in high school dated a teacher and the school found out somehow. I don't know if she thinks of it like this though. I for sure do. Lol, I was friends with a girl in high school that married a teacher as soon as we graduated. As far as I know, nobody cared. He also left his wife and newborn to be with her. Zero consequences. Does it count if I was 19? X was 33 when we met. We were together for 5 years. I came from an abusive home, so this older, more mature man seemed so interesting and wanted to take care of me, so I was all about it. I should also mention that I look very young for my age. I regularly get mistaken as being as young as 14. I'm 27 now. He was into play, so in bed he was always wanting me to act like I was like an 8-year-old girl, and he was my dad or older brother. Yeah, he turned out to be a pedo and has tons of CP on his computer, cell phone, and laptop. I tried going online and reporting him anonymously, but nothing ever came of it. I don't really want to go report in person because I'm scared no one will believe me because I'm his ex, and I don't want to get dragged into a court case or anything. I know step sibling porn is the hot thing right now, but seriously, if someone asked me to pretend to be their smaller, younger relative, I would get the duck out of Dodge immediately. That's nasty. All I can say is that I'm floored by how many horrible tales of abuse are in this thread, all the same story each time. I'm kinda in a weird space right now, realizing this happened to me. Welp. Another story to add to the list. No wonder my dad went to the police. I thought it was my parents' usual overreaction. I was 15 and he was 28. I would skip school to go to his flat and watch him smoke weed and have sex. At the time I thought he was really cool, even though he had no job and sat around doing drugs all day, and he had been in prison before. There were older guys there sometimes too. One evening called my mum pretending to be my friend's dad and getting permission for me to go on a fake sleepover. He got back with his girlfriend, who was a couple of years older than him and had a daughter. He didn't tell me, and I turned up there with a friend and there were a bunch of people there drinking. I had to pretend I hadn't been sleeping with him, so she didn't beat the crap out of me. She went to the shops and the older men were telling me to suck his rick before she came back. I left and never came back. He broke up with her after a while and got together with a girl 3 years younger than me, so I believe by this time he was 29 and she was 13. I was completely delusional about the entire thing. Now I'm 28 and I couldn't possibly imagine being attracted to a 15-year-old. He was clearly a pedophile and I was gullible enough to be groomed. I also had an experience with someone that I found out after was known for being a pedo. He was about 24 when I was 15. I also slept with a man in his 30s when I was 16. After we had sex, he asked me to remind him what my name was. That was a crucial moment in me realizing I had to have more self-respect and this wasn't cool. I consented to these at the time, but as a minor I wasn't old enough to consent and it really messed up my ability to trust men. My dad wasn't around much when I was a child, which was not his fault, but I guess that has always made me search for a father figure in a partner. Now I'm in a long-term relationship with a guy 4 years older than me who I've known for 12 years and is a great regular guy with a steady job and is the least likely person in the world to ever annult me. Please don't blame yourself. You weren't gullible. You were a normal 15-year-old girl who got preyed on by a predator. I had just turned 18. He was 26. He flew across half the world to see me. I didn't want him to, guilted me into being with him. When I told my mum I felt uncomfortable being pressured, she too guilted me about him coming so far for me. Overall super ducked up. But the most disturbing thing is how pressed he was on getting married. This man really wanted us to tie the knot, have babies, straight away. I had to remind him I hadn't even finished high school yet. That didn't bother him the slightest bit. He was dead set on us getting married, moving to his country, and having a family ASAP. Looking back, I can see that what he really wanted was to completely isolate me from everything and everyone I know. Worth mentioning, he was somewhat racist towards my people and wasn't big on the idea of coming back to my country and seal the deal of me being 100% dependent on him by bringing some babies into the picture. And you know what? It felt so much like everyone felt that's what I should do that I nearly went through with it. I shudder at the thought of what could have been. Oh my gods, nuke dodged. I'm glad you're free of him, friend. Well everyone, it's been swell. I'm off to hug my daughters. I almost wrote hug my kids, then reflected on my word choices. First one, I was 13 over 14, he was 18. I was the freshman, he was the senior. I had incredibly low self-esteem, and he made it easy to pretend I didn't. I managed to befriend the seniors and all that. Obviously I had never been sexual with anything. He pressured me slowly but firmly, sexting, to pictures, phone sex, cam sex, then essentially everything physical, but penetration, and finally convinced me to have sex with him. But once he took my virginity he was out. Second one, I was 16, he was 22. He swooped in after the last one. I lived in a small town, I thought he was so cool. He'd bring me lunch at school, I'd hang out at the university with him. Again with the self-esteem issues, I thought it was so hard to believe anyone would be interested in me at all, much less a college guy. Made me feel seen in a place I didn't feel heard. Third and last one, in my opinion the worst one. He attempted to date me when I was 16 and he was 26. I said no, he wouldn't let up for a few months. He tried again at 17, he was 27, and at 19, he was 29. This was when I finally relented, and for the first time could truly see the huge mistake I had made. He was the controlling type. I couldn't see my friends more than him. I was 19. I wanted to be out. He'd anger if I said I'd be going home to have dinner with my family. I was home from college and at my parents' instead of eating with him. He was the type to apologize with expensive gifts often. He'd come check up on me in college, stay in my dorm. I have no idea how my roommate was okay with this. I woke up when he was getting into the throwing stuff and punching the wall phase in his anger towards me. That fight was because he wanted kids so badly, and I had made it clear I at least wanted to finish school first. My stupider wasn't on BC, and he was actively trying to get me pregnant. When I found out about the broken condoms I lost it, and he thought punching the walls near me was the answer to change my mind. I was so scared of what he'd do if I broke up with him that I took a few weeks of manipulating fights and situations so in the end he'd be the one breaking up with me. I was so incredibly grateful I was actually able to get out without the situation being worse. Unfortunately, these situations have me very hesitant to attempt a real relationship. And at 25 I've only been in one long-term relationship. I have a very unhealthy view on relationships. Working on it, but it's more difficult than I expected. Edit. Details and a word edit numero dos. I didn't expect to have my most upvoted comment be on a topic like this, but also my first award. So thank you. I wish there weren't this many responses on a thread like this one. It's much too common of an occurrence. I hope everyone is doing better now after experiences like these. Well, we didn't really date. I was 8, in Mexico with family. Not the fancy resort Mexico. The rundown, cobblestone street, horses are the main transportation type of town. I was looking for my sister who had gone to a corner store with a cousin. There were multiple, so I was screwed. See, she was the type to go to at least 3 and then at the final one, pick her items and go back home. I took off. I went to the farthest one and would just loop back, no biggie. I was walking on the street and a car pulls up from behind me. He stops and rolls down his window and asks me to come to the car. I do, and he asks where the nearest school is. I tell him it's down this street we're on and then a right about 5 blocks down. Keep going straight. You'll see it. He said thank you. I said of course and went to walk away, but he said wait and opened his door. He told me to come around because he essentially had me pinned to a small chain link fence. I got around the door as if I were to get in, and he had his pants and underwear down, length in hand. He asked if I had ever seen one. I shook my head, not knowing what to say. He told me to hold it like he did. I was too scared to say no, so I did. He then showed me how to move my hand and let me do it. He eventually released, and he cleaned my hand off. He said I should get in, he'd give me a ride to the store. A guy on a bicycle came and started yelling at the guy in the truck. He was saying not to touch his sister ever again, or he'd cut his hand off, and he walked me down the street and around the corner and sat with me while I broke down. He said he was sorry and didn't know what else to do. He saw it happen from up the street and rode his bike as fast he could. Eventually I gathered my composure, gave him some money for a beer, and ran home. I think about it now. I cold been taken and never heard from or seen again. I thank that guy every day. I have never told anyone this, but wanted it off my chest. I'm so glad you're okay. I know this will get buried, but I'd like to tell my story anyway. I was 18 and started dating my 34-year-old coworker, Tom. I don't know why I even liked him, but for some reason I was drawn to him. He was charming, good looking, always willing to help people, talented, smart. When I was first getting to know him, he acted perfect in every way. No matter how hard I tried, I could never find any flaws in him. I had a rough upbringing with an absent biological father and a mom and stepfather who treated me like garbage most days. Tom always knew how to help me forget about my chisty home life and make me feel like $1,000,000. He would buy me gifts, tell me how special I was, take me out to nice dinners. To a naive 18-year-old, he was just a sweet guy with good intentions. Fast forward a few months and I realized how wrong I was. Tom and I had begun to secretly date behind my parents' back because I knew they wouldn't approve. After about a month of being together, they discovered our relationship and kicked me out, forbidding me to see him. Well, lo and behold, I ended up moving into Tom's place because I had nowhere else to go. The second we lived together and he knew I didn't have a way out, that's when he started abusing me. It was never physical abuse, was always verbal and emotional. Honestly, I think I would have preferred physical abuse. It would have hurt less. The abuse ranged from belittling me and telling me I was worthless to killing my dog in front of me simply because he felt like it. He would tell me I was useless, lazy, and stupid. Would tell me that the reason my biological dad abandoned me was because I was an incompetent piece of chiz who will never amount to anything. He would tell me my family didn't love me and that I should just kill myself because no one actually gave a chiz about me anyway. Sometimes when he was in a particularly bad mood, he would take my sentimental belongings and break them in front of me and then laugh at me when I cried. I put up with this chiz for 2 whole years, and the entire 2 years I wished I was dead. I had no friends, no family I could fall back on. He had completely beaten me into the ground to the point where I believed everything he said. Eventually I gathered the courage to leave, but it took a lot and took way too long. I'm 25 now and engaged to a wonderful man who treats me the way I know I deserve. I still have residual issues from Tom that I'm trying to work through. I have good days and bad days. To any young girls reading this, please remember that you are worth so much more than you think. Don't date any guy who gives you the time of day, especially if he's significantly older than you. Chances are, he's an abuser who is looking for an easy victim. Stay strong and stay smart. Don't be like me. He killed your dog. Duck that guy. I hope he gets punished for what he did to you. I'm happy you moved on and are now in a healthy relationship. Wish you the best. When I was 17, I was befriended by a guy almost 17 years older than me. We were friends for 2 years and he pursued me relentlessly. I never fancied him, but we did become really close and I cared a lot about him. I had a really hard time when I was younger and tried to commit suicide at 17, so when he promised me unconditional love, which I had never had, and showed me all this attention, he eventually wore me down. He made a move when I was 19 and I didn't say no. We were together for 5 years. I can't say he was a predator exactly, but when I reached my late 30s, the thought of being with a teenager actually made me want to vomit. A change of perspective was a real eye-opener, as I had always explained that I was more mature than he was, so the age gap didn't seem that big. But when you're 17, your opinion of time is so different to 20 years later. I did this a lot as a child/teenager. Though all but one relationship stayed online, they were all still very sexual in nature. I never really realized they were predators and the ones at fault due to how my mom handled me being groomed and abused by a 40-year-old man in the 5th grade. I got hardcore grounded and told not to talk to him. He got off with no punishment whatsoever. So I kept sneaking back to him. He made me feel important and special and mature. And then there were the guys I dated. A lot of guys in their 20s, when I was 15 or younger. I was just a source of nudes and sexting for them. But it still made me feel needed. Then I started dating a 40-year-old man when I was 16. That's the one who broke the online barrier. He took my virginity. He ended up killing himself when he was caught molesting a 10-year-old. I still couldn't bring myself to understand he was a predator. I had been hella groomed. It took a lot of therapy and medication to realize these people were the ones at fault. They were predators. I was a kid. I was 18, he was 34. Sounds really bad when said like that, but it didn't to me, since my dad is also 16 years older than my mum, and they were a very happy couple for 15 years. I met him via my older sister, only through the internet at first, because he lived in the US and I lived in France. Of course I was madly in love. Of course he made me think he was too, and that he never felt that for anyone else and all the other bullshit you easily fall for when you're 18. After a few months I went to visit him alone for 2 weeks. It went well, but something was weird. I really couldn't be myself, and he was always criticizing me about being too shy, for example. And even if he took 2 weeks off work, we didn't really do anything special like visiting the city, even though I've crossed half the globe to see him. It's when I went back home that I really realized what he was, a pervert and a loser. When I was back in France, he sent me a video that he filmed of us having sex. Of course I wasn't aware of being filmed, and to this day I have no idea if he kept the video to himself or not. It's been a few years now, I don't know what he's doing now. I still get a message every year that I always ignore. Good on you for ignoring him. If it comes from the same number or email, can you block him? Or does he intentionally use a different one? I'm extremely upset that a man and his family took advantage of me. I was 15 and he was nearing 20. I didn't know his age when we started dating. It was the beginning of the school year. I was a sophomore and he was a senior, so I thought he was 17 at the oldest, so while not ideal, nothing predatory, or so I thought. Now, I had just left a mentally abusive relationship with someone else which had almost led me to suicide. Every night that ex would talk to me about how he was going to harm himself or kill himself, especially if I left. So it took more than one time to break up with him, and I thought that if he killed himself for real that time, that I would have to do the same. So after that experience, my whole understanding of how relationships were supposed to work was completely shaken up, especially since I was at an age where everyone is learning that stuff. So, when the older boy came along, I was so broken in that area that I clung to the affection I didn't receive in my last try at a relationship. I didn't know his age until after our first kiss. I spent a lot of time at his place, and he, his friends, and all of his family led me to think that our ages were perfectly acceptable, normal even, and that I shouldn't be worried in the least. I lost my virginity to him, and we had intercourse many times. I thought it was okay because everyone acted like it was, and everyone always told me how great he was, what a nice guy he was, how he was just the McDucking best, so I went along with it, despite my apprehension. What it was statutory rape. I started to get more and more uncomfortable when it came to physical intimacy. I started feeling wrong and gross, and my eyes were finally open to how no, it was not ducking okay what he did to me. An adult man had his hands all ducking over me and everyone encouraged it. He was so ducking loved by everyone that I could never say anything bad about him, let alone that he was a rapist, without getting verbally attacked myself. So of course, I repressed that shiz. I shoved it down deep inside of me because I didn't get any sympathy. I got no pity, kind words, or any closure at all. It took my 2 years to say anything about it to anyone. I didn't process the situation fully until I moved to college. We went through several rounds of consent training, and each one was brutal to me. I couldn't give consent. Every time we had a training, the wound reopened. The first person I told was in college, because they didn't know him. What did I get in return? Take some responsibility. You were at fault too. It's unfair to call him a pedophile. Yeah. That felt fucking fantastic. I'm turning 19 next Monday, and I swear, every day I get closer to his age, I get sickened more and more about how someone could ever think it was okay. It hurts quite a bit. I'm working on relationships with my therapist now. I have a great understanding now about my boundaries, which is good, but I keep psycheing myself out of possible romantic encounters because the two experiences I had were far from healthy, and I have difficulty understanding now what isn't healthy. Even probably harmless things have me on edge, because along with the abuse I went through, they still did nice things along with it. I really appreciate this question, because I don't really have anyone else, except my therapist, to talk about these issues with. Sorry for the long ramble. Edit. Typo. How many times was this guy held back in school if he was almost 20 and a senior? My mom was 17 and my dad was 26 when they got married. They were divorced before I was 2, and it was a barred marriage. My dad loved his cocaine and beer, and my mom loved, well, his best friend. I think I'm a bad person for chuckling at this. I'll be honest, the high-tech chameleon suit was an indicator. The shoulder-mounted laser tracking plasma gun was another. I think what finally tipped me off was the weird mouth. Loved the dreadlocks though. Was his cum green and glow in the dark? Probably gonna be buried, but this isn't me, but my little sister, who made the mistake of linking all her social media to her phone number and constantly gets dick pics and sexual messages from creepy old people. She is going to be 14 in August. Have you told your parents about it? Something should be done if possible. Like getting her a new number or something. She's 13. I didn't date him because his role to my family could be reduced to creepy uncle, and he was/is married, but he started grooming me when I was 11. From my first records diary, he was a fully grown adult, my mother's age. He would have been 43 at the time, and I was obsessed with seeing him the once a year I could. My clothing choice was always designed to get his attention. I would find ways to be alone with him, so he could tell me inappropriate things and touch me and kiss me away from his wife/my family. He was the first person to view me as an adult, the first person to view me sexually. This is progressing to like me at age 15 over 16, in a world where I was just this fat nerd that no one at school had a romantic interest in. But then again, I wasn't interested in boys my age. I have a lifelong thing for older men. Wonder where that came from. Once I turned 18, the flirtations continues on a once yearly basis. When I was 24, 2016, I texted him and asked to meet up for a drink. We dated, snuck around getting drunk at bars when he was lying to his wife where he was for the next 3 years. I haven't spoken to him in over a year at this point. To this paragraph. In 2016, when I started talking to him again, what I really wanted was to have sex with him. Most of the following 3 years was me lying to him about loving him and feigning concern for his marriage, because what I really wanted was to just have sex with him once too. As I've described over the years, close this bizarre chapter of my life. Somehow having sex with me was crossing a line. It never happened, thankfully. He started making sexual comments about my younger cousins, both under 18 and over 18. He's a ducked up disgusting predator, and I hugely regret every moment I ever played into it. I called him out multiple times on his predatory behavior, and he never took accountability, of course, and excuses his abusive behavior on being a Scorpio. Oh boy. I was 14, and he was 23 years old. We met through friends. He hung out with high schoolers, of course, and started dating. He would take me out to bars. Girls can definitely look older with makeup done, but there was a lot of people looking the other way, and out to parties, and back to his apartment, where we had plenty of sex, of course. He had some interesting proclivities, and I learned a lot of things I didn't have a clue till then, that some people did in the bedroom. He made me feel desired and special, like this full-grown man could have any sophisticated adult woman he wanted, but he was interested in me. Eventually, his parents caught us having sex in his living room. We were idiots, and somehow it came out how old I was. Not sure how, maybe they got suspicious, or they had seen him with young girls before, and they called my mom. He was shipped off to live with his aunt in another state and my mom beat the crap out of me. I realize now he was not special himself. He was just a gross dude who liked young girls who work out and afraid and wouldn't say no to the things he wanted to do. Buckle up because this is a wild ride. When I was in the 4th grade, I was doing a musical in my school district and had the biggest crush on this guy in the 10th grade. He was nice to me. I thought he was cute. Nothing crazy. Fast forward 7 years, I'm 17 and a senior in high school, and he was 23. We crossed paths on the town bus and it all went downhill from there. We became FB friends and it very quickly went from catching up to suddenly we're dating, and he wants to spend his life with me. You'd think that would have been a red enough flag, but wait, there's more. He was also a pathological liar and told me he was dying of pancreatic cancer and used this excuse to tell me we should have sex. Luckily we never did. He also claimed that his car got vandalized. He was homeless. He got kicked out of school. He was in the military. He was this and that. He also had a daughter, and often when he spoke of her he'd call her ours, which was weird since I'd never even met her. He always tried to get money out of me in nudes. He used to plan out our life together and talk about kids and all this. But he would also disappear for periods of time and I wouldn't hear from him, only for his excuse to be that either he was in jail, in the hospital, or a couple times he would post on FB about threatening to kill himself. One of the times he disappeared for a while I was on a school field trip and he called me on the bus ride back home, telling me all about how he was in the hospital and thinking about me all the time, and I was the reason he was still living, and asked me to marry him. My dumber was so touched. Then about a month later he told me he had to go to Montana for an experimental cancer research thing. Never heard from him again, but a few weeks later saw him walking down the street. Anyway, the good part of the story comes after that. I found out that, while we were together, he had blocked me on FB and had an actual girlfriend the whole time. Oh, and I also found out that currently he's in jail for being a pedophile. Anyone surprised? Anyone surprised? I'm only surprised that he got caught tbh. I was 13 and my parents had a friend who was 24 that started hanging around the house a lot. I developed a big crush on him and ended up losing my virginity to him. I thought we were in love and going to get married. My parents found out and I never saw him again. Didn't realize how creepy it was until I had my own kids. They were a group of internet friends, all ranging from 25 to 30, while I was 14 to 15. One of them attempted to rape me, and the others kind of ganged up on me to explain that he was so sad because he'd been dumped, and I was so mature, so it was okay, and couldn't I just let him tap that to be nice? My parents also encouraged the situation. They pushed me into the arms of these men when I was barely into high school, and pushed me to visit their apartments alone. I think they wanted something to happen to teach the lesbian lesson or maybe correct my lesbianism. A few years later at 18 another one of them stalked. He moved in my building to be able to stalk me easier and tried to pressure me into sex for a full year until it culminated into him trying to rape me too. Never talked to them ever again. Honestly, I felt more betrayed by the lone woman in the group who could have saved me but just very happily participated in and even encouraged my grooming. The other were just the usual rapist men, but this woman, I'll never forget her. Good lord, do I have a story. The one time was with a nearly 40-year-old Swedish man named Patrick who would masturbate in the same room as his infant son. I was 15. It was a long distance thing, but he made me do horrible things to me on camera. Now that I think about it, this man is a danger to society. I genuinely don't think I can write out what he would groom me into doing. Now that I think about it, the only time I wasn't in contact with a predator when I was an adolescent was when I was 17. There is probably so much child porn of me out there. The last predator I was with was the following. I met him when I was barely 18 and we had an 8-year age difference. I look back and I feel like I was a baby compared to now. So maybe the word predator doesn't apply, but he took advantage of my childlike mind, so my ex, needless to say, was an abusive pose. When I met him, I was an atheist and he introduced me to the teachings of Jesus Christ. I'm now agnostic. He would refuse to keep a job for longer than 2 or 3 months and would regularly make me quit my jobs and have me work from home. He set up an account for me on a site similar to Pornhub Live and would force me to have sex with him on cam every night for hours, and that's how he would make money off of me cause he couldn't keep a job cause he had a problem with authority. He pimped me out to 2 guys a couple times. He would make me quit jobs that I had to go to buy car because it's a waste of gas money. We had many arguments about how I hated having sex, being raped by, and I repeatedly begged him to get his job and let me get one too. His reasons as to why we shouldn't do that were the following. 1. Regular jobs don't pay enough compared to porn. Not true in our case. 2. Since I had a kink for being a bit promiscuous during my adolescence, now as a grown adult I should enjoy my boyfriend forcing to be abused in front of thousands of viewers. Ridiculous. Get ready for the 3rd reason. 3. Jesus Christ suffered a lot and died for my sins, so letting myself be abused should be nothing in comparison. He made me feel like I was crazy and like I was forcing him to treat me this way. I left him shortly after and moved across the world and have made a new life for myself. As a Christian, I want to beat the hell out of that disgusting excuse of a man. I'm sorry this happened to you. Different situation, but I think it applies. I started dating my boyfriend when I was 18 and he was 25. We met at work and our boss set us up, although neither of us were actively pursuing the other. My family freaked out thinking he was an abuser and weirdo for wanting to date me at such a young age, but really we just met when that 6-year age gap looked really sus. Him now 22 were still together. He never pressured me into anything and has been the most supportive and loving boyfriend I could ever asked for. His friends thought it was weird for a bit too, but now that we're both in our 20s and it's clear that it's not a toxic situation, it's all good. Sometimes people with age gaps fall for each other. I was 17 and he was 22 when we first started dating. I was 19 when we got married. 7 years and 2 kids later. Has still the best decision I ever made. That 5-year age gap looked awful at the time and we kept everything very hushed until I turned 18. But, like you, has never pressured me. We actually didn't have sex until we were married. Pushed me to do anything I didn't want to. Has the best husband and dad I could ask for. I was 16 with a 21-year-old boyfriend. He was actually a long-time family friend who went to high school with my cousin of the same age and knew that whole part of my family. My cousin introduced me to him when I was spending the day with him. Cousin. The 3 of us hung out all day. I have no real memory of how we stayed in contact. It was either through MySpace or we exchanged phone numbers. Either way we started dating, and at least outwardly my whole family approved of it. No one ever took me aside and was like, this isn't okay. No one told him to get lost. My mother was a raging alcoholic and also doing coke at the time, and I feel like I was only dating him to get easy access to my own alcohol and occasionally other drugs. It didn't seem weird to me when he wouldn't tell his family my real age. He told them I was 18. I believe that all of his friends knew. We hung out frequently with them and none of them said anything to me either. I don't honestly know if anyone else thought this was weird for the nearly 2 years I was dating this man. Close to the end of our relationship I was becoming more and more depressed and liking him less and less. He was becoming more and more abusive. He began putting me down a lot when no one else was around, insulting my intelligence, even though he was the one dating me. Then when I'd lash out around other people he'd make it so he was the calm one. Eventually one day he got angry that I had worn a mini skirt over top my swimsuit around my very gay friends, and his response to this was to choke me against the arm of my couch. I didn't leave him then. It took him raping me while I was unconscious from my medication a month later for me to be willing to leave him. I tried to call someone I believed could help me, but they didn't answer for rather insane reasons. So I attempted to tell my cousin, this guy's friend, he'd been abusing me, and he refused to believe me. So at that point I just kept it to myself. Very few people in my life know what happened in the end, and even now at 30 no one has gone, yeah, it was weird when that grown man was dating you. I try to message girls I see posting on Reddit privately and tell them it's not normal and they should find someone they trust to get help to get out of the relationship they're in. I don't know if any of them have taken my advice, but I hope so. I dated someone in their 50s when I was 19. I don't know why. My parents knew and hated it. I hate the old me now too. When I was 12 I would go into Yahoo chat room and wait for older men to talk to me. After I flirted with them for a while I would get their number and then incessantly call them and leave answering machine about them being pedophiles so their family could hear. I aged myself a little here with the Yahoo chat and answering machines. Oh god, I had the same hobby, except I would flirt and send them to a sleazy motel to wait for me there. I was obviously a no-show and some dudes would come back online and ask where I was. Some guys left their homes twice before realizing it was a setup. Deleted. Sex was awful. He was 32 and I was 17 over 18. He was terrible in bed and treated me like garbage. But he did give me a cutting of implant that I still have today. Also helped to reinforce that sex is not love. But seriously, the sex was awful. I was 16 and desperate for affection. After being the unpopular weird kid throughout school and being diagnosed with depression at 14. Between 14 to 16, I had a few online relationships with men in their mid-20s who would send me letters to my home address from overseas and occasionally sex toys. I felt very mature and wanted. I was 16 when I went to an interstate meetup from an online group I was involved in. I spent the day flirting heavily with a guy who was about 24. He knew my age. I was convinced age was just a number. He came back to the house I was staying at, but took fancy to the girl who lived there with her ex. They were all a similar age. He bedded down in the lunch room with me, and I thought I might have sex with him. That was what I wanted at the time. But she came into the bed and they started getting into it beside me. Then her ex came home. I'd never met him, and did not find him attractive. He said, "Oh, cool. Cuddle pile," and jumped in bed with us. I let him have sex with me because I was so upset that the guy I liked was pretty much ignoring me. The next morning, the ex declared we were dating, and I accepted that. I also accepted when he decided that we mutually wanted to break up. I just wanted to be wanted. Another friend from the group, who was 30, the next year flew me over to his state for a dirty weekend, which I thoroughly enjoyed at the time, but looking back, I shudder and feel bad about all my past experiences. My parents were unhappy about my relationships with these older men, but I was determined that I knew better. Looking back, I wish I'd listened. And I hope my 12-year-old daughter will listen to me when I try to keep her safe, but I fear it will be as futile as when my parents tried to keep me safe. Sad thing is, you could be dating a predator at any age. I was 17. He was 30. We worked together. He had a wife and 2 kids and I stupidly believed he would leave his wife for me because he complained about her constantly. I should have told his wife, because he ended up parading his little family around in front of me when we had a company picnic, and then afterwards had the audacity to text me to meet him in the employee lounge to fool around. For being a dumb kid, I at least had the sense to know that he was a chisty person after that little charade, and I let him sit there waiting for me for nearly an hour. I should have told his wife. I still think about it, and I'm disgusted with myself and with him. Does it count if it's online? If so, when I was 8 to 9 I dated an 18-year-old, and when I was 10 I dated a 17-year-old. Luckily we never sent any pictures to each other, but it unfortunately led to me lying about my whole life online for 7 years. I stopped last August and owned up to all my online friends. When I was 14 I used to meet my boyfriend after school before sports practice. He was my age, but couldn't drive, so his older brother would drive him. He was in his late 20s and still lived at home. He also had a wife and kids. He met my best friend one time when he brought his brother to my school and asked her if she wanted to come with us. We usually would just go get a soda and hang out at a park. She told me later that she got his number and that she was messaging him and he was asking her for inappropriate things and stuff, and that she was thinking about doing it. I told her that he has a wife and kids and that I didn't think that she should do anything with him. She ignored me, and other than that conversation, I never did anything to stop it. My boyfriend did not know about it, and I just kept quiet because it was what she wanted. I feel like I let her down though. I should have said something to someone, even if she ended up hating me. Chat sites were a terrible idea for me and my friends at 12 to 14. I got some kind of gratification from getting attention, since I wasn't getting any from boys my age. Looking back, I realize now there could be photos of me underage posted somewhere, because it happened multiple times. This led to my teenage years being over-sexual with men who would meet around the city. Again, it always seemed to be a self-esteem thing. I have a long-term partner now and am doing well for myself, but man, I think back and cringe at how naive I was and how many creeps there are out there. Man, I kinda want to see the opposite side of this thread. Dudes who dated 11 to 14-year-olds when you were in your 20s. WTF. Oh my. I was always a rebel. I thought I was special. The guy made promises to me that even I knew he wouldn't keep, but I was so entranced. Not a good idea. Do not fall into that trap, please. I dated an older woman when I was a teen. She was in her mid-20s. I was still a minor. When we broke up, she told me she'd been stopping her friends from coming after me, but now she wasn't going to stop them anymore. She proceeded to make my life hell and even faked her own death to make me look bad. She stalked me online for a while after that. I don't know if she still is, but I can't deny the possibility. I don't feel safe. Don't know if I ever will. I know a 14-year-old girl who ducked her pot dealer for weed. I know a 13-year-old who was dating a 45-year-old. Oh boy, did that guy get the chiz kicked out of him over it. It never really was an issue here because everyone grew up with that mentality that goofs deserve nothing more than a bullet in between the eyes. And when all the teenage girls hear that coming from boys, it tends to make them think. I was 14 and he was 18 over 19. We met on Habbo Hotel and were dating, and then it moved on to MSN Messenger. He went by the name of Craig, and he said he was from Southend. I would send him topless pictures and often go on webcam. We discussed meeting in real life, and then red flag number 1 comes up. Although I was far too trusting to realize he admits his name isn't Craig, it's something else, and he isn't from Southend. He is from a northwest city. I was in the northeast. He explained this away by saying he was just protecting his identity, as should anyone using the internet, but by admitting the truth it meant he really loved and trusted me. We arranged for him to come to my house, where I lived with my parents, for my week whilst I was off for half-term break. My parents were fully on board with this. To this day I will never understand why, and I vow never to repeat their mistake. It was agreed that me and my mother would pick him up from the train station after my last day of school, still in uniform, and he would stay in my bedroom and I would stay on the couch for the week. During that week, I would sneak up to my room after my parents went to sleep and would sneak back down in the morning. I lost my virginity that week. He didn't have any condoms and afterwards he joked about coming in me. Who the duck makes a joke like that? After he went home we dated for about 8 months and met up another time. During one of our telephone calls I heard another woman in the background and he said it was his friend V. One of his other friends had already tried to warn me about V and my boyfriend sleeping together, however I brushed this off as lies. We eventually broke up because I developed a crush on someone my own age and honestly I couldn't be bothered to continue with how mind ducky he was, acting very manipulative. Once I broke it off he became vicious towards me, and then more information came out that V was actually pregnant with his child. I ultimately blocked him from every corner of my life and I haven't heard from him since. I think he now has 2/3 children with V and seemingly are still together. Looking back now, I know it was wrong, and I know I should have been protected by my parents. Going forward I know how to do better than them. I'm sorry your parents didn't protect you. Otches. Here's my time to shine a light on how ducked up predators are. Backstory. I'm from a town of 400. I like books, never took gun safety or snowmobile please, was super sick as a kid and couldn't be in sports, and didn't get along with my classmates. So when Facebook first started, lots of groups were out there, older men, younger women, blah blah. So me, finding men like Pierce Brosnan and George Clooney more attractive than Channing Tatum. turned to these groups. I had men messaging me all over the place. A high school shop teacher, a retired truck driver, a media personality, a principal, and so on. And I was a horny kid, read Harlequin romances, since I was 12, like I was desperate to feel the pain that happened in between the lines of these books. So there I was, 16, and had men fawning over me. I'd talk dirty with them, and we'd share pictures, and talk about feed cum, and we'd make love. All that BS. For 4 years I dated the retired truck driver. He lived hours away, so we never met, until I was a freshman in college. I mean, the man was gross, married, and had me combed into being wrapped around his fat cigarette-scented finger. We holed ourselves up in a Chiz hotel, when I should have been partying and going to Cleese, and learning what a hangover was, not rolling around in bed trying to get a 68-year-old hard, because he had low testosterone. 4 years he had me so convinced he was my only love I'd ever have. And that when I graduated I'd drive to his home, turning my back on everyone and everything I'd ever known. When I would want to hang out with friends he'd say I was a slut, and I was ducking all the guys. I wasn't, was literally hanging out with friends. So a few months before graduation I came to my senses, and realized how ducked up it was. I did hook up with a guy, who was my age and I ended up dating for a few years, but had savior complex, because he knew my original plans. But anyway, retired trucker gets the email, because he didn't know how to text and only had Facebook, that him done, and how ducked up it was, that he was doing that. He wrote me begging me to come back, and how I was just mad he wouldn't be at graduation. I told him no again, and said that would be it. That ducker mailed letters typed out on an older computer about how I should enjoy my last night on my knees, and how I was going to bleed when he got a hold of me. I was so scared I couldn't tell anyone, not even savior complex. So I went to the police station and told the cop my story. He said an international restraining order is hard to get, but he'd call the guy and try to scare him off. Won't lie, I was a little heartbroken when I heard how sad he was, but come on, guy was almost 70 and I wasn't 20. He never contacted me again, and I actually found his a bit a few months ago. I have way more stories of small stuff with him and other guys. If you want, just ask. I was a lonely, bald 12-year-old who wanted attention. A 40-year-old dad with a son convinced me on the internet to send him nudes, and he sent me photos of him masturbating. He made me feel cared for and listened to, and it makes me ashamed to this day how much I trusted a man I never met. I didn't realize it was ducked up till I was 16, and realized even at that age I wasn't attracted to 14-year-olds, the age I was when it happened. The day that man raped me, even though I gave consent, it was still rape. Please, don't try and convince me otherwise. I was trying to get out of it. Because it was in a shopping center, I was hiding in Smith's and texting him saying I wasn't sure. I went out and walked right past him for him to not even acknowledge me. He knew it was wrong. Big trigger warning, I get detailed here. Although my gut and my brain were telling me to just leave, I relented and went to accost her with him. He scoped out the area with me following like a pathetic little lamb. He had the audacity to finger me, a child, in the stairwell. He got me to sit outside the disabled bathroom and to enter after a minute, but I couldn't move, so we switched. No one intervened. I was reached for the handle to run when he entered. He was pretty silent the entire time, to not alert anyone. I had a panic attack during it and dissociated pretty hard after that. I'll never forget those feelings. I felt alone, empty, disgusted, shame. He smirked at the blood on the condom. Afterwards he just left me to go home. One of his tactics to make me come to see that he'd already bought a bus pass, so why go home so early if it was that big of a deal. Afterwards I went back to that same Smith's and cried. Again, no one intervened. It was really difficult to process what happened. I resorted to joking about it at first. My friend slagged me off behind my back saying I lied about the entire thing. It was quite a difficult journey to even realize I was raped. One I'm still on, if I'm honest. Once I realized the severity, I've tried to reach out to younger girls on social media I see wanting attention from older men, to warn them that losing your virginity shouldn't be rushed. It's an experience most of the population will experience, and you have to choose when that's okay for you. Do not let anybody tell you that you are too old when you're in your teens, because it's not up to the random people. Listen to your heart, brain and gut. To anyone reading this who is a young teen preparing to meet an older guy, please don't. Men being attracted to young girls should not be normalized. I still suffer flashbacks and panic attacks 4 years after the fact. Those men do not love you. They see you as some sick fetish. As soon as I gave that man my virginity, he stopped talking to me. Do not be another victim for statutory rape. These creeps should and do know better, yet they still take advantage of insecure young girls and boys. Please reach out to somebody. There will always be somebody to listen. And listen to yourself. If your mind is telling you it's wrong, it's probably wrong. This might get buried, but this was around 2013. I was 15 and talking online to a YouTube star who was in his early 20s who lived about 4 hours away from me. He asked for videos of me twerking and dancing in specific outfits and would pressure me to send them when I was uncomfortable. In buried he had these videos of me, and out of fear he would leak them. I sent more and more, all via email. He was caught and prosecuted as a child sex predator. Girls came forward and had stories similar to mine after I had graduated high school. This was around 2017/2018. A friend of mine sent me the article and she said, "I sent this that guy you were always texting?" I never told anyone about the videos, but I talked about how I was starting to see this guy. I really thought I liked him, and this was just how you pleased someone who didn't live in your same city. I called the newspaper to try to get information on the lawyers so I could join in and share my experience, but I chickened out talking to the lawyers. I was so afraid of what would come out, buried thinking about if the videos ever saw the light of day, shamed at what I had done. Still racked with guilt that I didn't step up and share my story, but even now I can't admit it to myself I was a victim of his. OMG, I remember that asshole. So sorry you went through this. It's so cool that you're 19 minus 39-year-old man. No, as extreme as some of these stories, but I was 15 and he was 19 when we first got involved. We didn't have sex until I was 16. I never was in an actual relationship with him, kind of a FWB-ish thing. I wised up when he tried to pull off the condom without me noticing and never fooled around with him after that, but we remained friends for a while after that. By the time I was a senior in high school I could confidently look back and say he was lame, and there was a reason girls his age weren't interested, but it wasn't until about a year ago, I'm 30 now, that I came to the realization he wasn't just a loser but a creep. Jesus Christ, I was imagining 16-year-old girls getting swept up by the 20-something college kid, but this is just ducked up. I dated a 29-year-old man from ages 17 to 20. I was still in my senior year in high school. My parents owned a local restaurant. I worked there starting at 16. He was an assistant manager. I never felt pressured or anything like that. I wanted and pursued him. I asked him to take me to my prom. I'm 33 now. I can't imagine someone asking me to a prom at 28. He declined. He did, however, attend my high school graduation. My parents were obviously not thrilled, and my mom spun tall tales about free tuition if I moved out of state with my grandmother. I moved. He met with my parents, expressed intention to marry me, and followed 6 months after. We lived together for almost 2 years before he cheated on me with someone he worked with who was more age appropriate. I left and moved back home with my parents. I was devastated. Looking back now, it's all kind of surreal. I don't understand the age difference and the appeal of it. He's with someone age appropriate now. I have a less depressing one, but also probably not what you're looking for. I was 18 and he was 31. I moved to a different state for him. He had 2 kids with 2 different mothers. It started off with a lot of drama, which left me with a lot of trust issues, but honestly, our relationship was pretty decent. I really loved his kids and still maintain contact with them. He treated me well emotionally, but was very irresponsible with money and didn't act like the kind of dad I needed him to be. He wasn't a bad dad, just not a very good one. I was with him for 4 years. I was lost at 18 and needed to get out of my hometown, and he helped me do that. When I decided to go back home, we both cried a lot. I'm 30 now and still cry at the John Legend song All of Me lol. The first time I heard that song was listening to it with him after I told him I was going back home. The older I get and the more removed I'm from the situation, the weirder I think it is. I'm 1 year younger than he was when he met me, and I won't date anyone below the age of 25 probably, and certainly not an 18-year-old. I'm now dating and living with a woman. He has had 3 additional kids with a woman who had 2. They are living in a 1-bedroom house with 5 kids under the age of 10. They seem happy enough, but I'm so ducking grateful that I took a very active stance in my birth control, wanted more for my life, and had a loving family that I was able to come back home to. I was 6 and 8 on the internet, not even a girl anymore, so I hope all the guys that preyed on me know they are gay now. / how the turntables. 24-year-old brother of my friend used to come around when I was a 14-year-old babysitter. He would buy alcohol and bring cigarettes and weed and then feel me up on the couch when the kids were in bed. The kids' parents would act up enough themselves that they never batted an eyelid. My brother put a stop to it when he found out. He was 21 at the time, but he knew the dude from school and told both our parents. Smart move. He got his ass kicked twice over. Oh my, you watched until the end? That's fucking awesome dude. Thanks for watching.